Good evening, everybody. Welcome to meeting number 7 of tonight's Administration, Finance, and Fire Committee agenda. I am your chair, Jason Trombetta. Comments can be made to the members of the public for the matter on the agenda by advising the chair during the request to address items on the agenda. The public may submit written comments for the matters that are on to the agenda to jpaleb@westlincoln.ca before 4:30 on the day of the meeting for consideration by the committee. Comments received after 4:30 on the day of the committee meeting will be considered in the following council meeting. Comments submitted are included in the record. The meeting is live streamed and will be recorded and available on the township's website. Move on to our land acknowledgement statement. The Township of West Lincoln, being a part of the Niagara region, is situated on treaty land. The land is steeped in rich history, such as the First Nations, such as the Hattaway-Wendarong, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credits First Nation. There are many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Township of West Lincoln, as a part of the regional municipality of Niagara, stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wise stewardship on the lands on which we live. Members of the committee, is there any change in orders of items on the agenda? Seeing none, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest? Seeing none, we have one appointment this evening. Byron Tan, Watson and Associates Engineering, Watson and Associates Economics. I'm used to engineering all the time. Economics Limited is Township of West Lincoln 2024 development charges, and we have a PowerPoint presentation. So Mr. Tan, if you want to come to the podium, just kind of give yourself a little brief introduction for the record, and then away you go to the presentation. Good evening, Mr. Tan.
Good evening, committee members, chair, members of staff, and public. Happy to be here tonight.
Thank you.
So I guess without further ado, I do have a presentation, that I'd like to provide to members of the committee, and really it's an update to the development charge background study. If you recall, we have been undertaking this process over the past year and a half. With the township. We actually released the background study earlier this year, and actually undertook the mandatory public meeting, just before the summer months. However, since that time, there's been a few changes to the legislation, and subsequent to that, we've also worked with township staff to make adjustments to your background study. So that way we have a more comprehensive review, as well as adding in a couple of more elements prior to your consideration, or the township's consideration of the bylaw. Sorry. I'm trying to get this. Anyways.
Bless you.
Thank you. So as part of my presentation, it is a brief one. Again, it's to provide you a little bit of an update via addendum number 1, which we issued earlier this month. Again, we already had the mandatory public meeting earlier this year, so this is more of an update meeting in order to provide you with the findings and the revisions to the original background study that was released. So, as I said, we'll kind of go through a little bit of a recap. I kind of touched upon it, but I'll just show you in a couple of slides. And then as well, provide you a bit of information as to what portions of the Development Charges Act has changed via Bill 185, which some of you may know, which was enacted as of June 6, 2024. And then provide you a bit of a summary of what we've undertaken for the addendum. There are 3 different services that are affected, and that'll be documented as part of this presentation. As well, we'll end it off with the draft rates as calculated, and then the survey of how you compare between the remainder of Niagara region. So just as a recap, as I mentioned, it's been over a year where we've undertaken the process for the development charge background study. If you recall, when I was presenting back in earlier this year, I did make note that we started working with the township staff last year, starting in 2023, and then through that time developed a number of policy items, calculations, developed the capital program, et cetera. Prior to the release of the background study, we did have an engagement with the stakeholders or the development community, and that took place on April 18th. Subsequent to that, we also had a presentation for council to provide members of council with a bit of an overview as to what transpired through the background study, as well as the draft rates and how you compared as well. We did release the study back on May 13th and then held the mandatory public meeting on May 27th. Since that time, we actually provided the township staff, which was then presented to council, an amending bylaw to remove the expiry date back on June 24th. And that was to allow us some time to be able to pivot and embrace some of the changes that came from Bill 185. And you'll see in a moment, I'll touch upon, the 5 or 6 items that were revised through that bill. But one of them was allowing municipalities to be able to remove the expiry date to your bylaws in order for you to have a bit more time to adjust for the other minor amendments that are now extended to municipalities. We released the addendum report earlier this month, and as I said, we're here today for the committee council meeting. And it is the hope that we are back on October 28th for council's consideration of the bylaw. So just some recap to the recent legislation. I think the reason why I'm putting Bill 134, even though I presented this the last time, is that the definitions of affordable housing with respect to rental and owned units are now in effect. When I presented back in the end of May of this year, affordable units were still not released via the bulletin or the regulations. However, subsequent to that, as of June 1st, they are now in effect. So if you do receive any types of developments that fall into the category of what's considered affordable rentals or affordable owned, you must extend the development charge exemption, regardless of whether you've updated your bylaw or not. It is in effect starting June 1st, 2024. And just to refresh everyone's memory, the affordable exemptions are those that have either the rent or the ownership costs equal to less than 30% of the 60th percentile of income within the municipality, or less than the average market rent or 90% of the average purchase price. More often than not, it is most likely that the income qualifier holds true, but there have been some instances within Ontario where the average purchase price of less than 90% or the market rent actually is the lesser value than the income. And I'll talk about what that looks like from a dollar perspective within West Lincoln. And then most recently, Bill 185, so this is the Cutting the Red Tape to Build More Homes Act. Again, this was first introduced back in December 2023 and received royal assent on June 6, 2024. So part of this bill, it did remove the mandatory phase-in of the charges. So as a township, you did have your DCs phased in over time because we did undertake an update just after 2022. So it was backdated where municipalities had to phase in their development charges. So after the release of this bill, automatically, since your bylaw did not include the mandatory phase-in provisions, we reverted back to your maximum amount that you're able to collect for. The largest component that changed as well is the studies being eligible as a capital cost. If you recall, when I presented to the township back on May, as well as in April during the council workshop, one of the items through Bill 23 was that studies were no longer eligible to be included for development charges. However, subsequent to that, the province heard everyone's feedback, whether it's on the municipal side or the development side, and as part of Bill 185, reintroduced studies. So for the most part, we continued studies that would have been identified from your prior development charge study back in 2019, as updated in 2022. However, we have made some adjustments, for some other studies that are being considered, given the growth forecasts and the type of works you are trying to undertake over the next 10 years, especially in the Smithville area. So those listings of studies are contained within the addendum report for your review. Another thing that we're also changing as part of the background study, and which is documented within the addendum, is the rate freeze time horizon for zoning bylaw amendments and site plan applications. Historically, they were a period of 2 years, where if a site plan application was deemed complete or a zoning bylaw amendment was approved by the municipality, then the clock starts where the DC rates are frozen for a period up to 2 years. So as long as a builder or developer pulls a building permit within that time horizon, their DCs are locked in, subject to interest, whatever your interest policies may be. This reduction has actually changed from 2 years to now 18 months, so a year and a half. So as part of this legislation, we've also included that as part of the draft bylaw, which is again documented within the addendum report. And then we also had, as part of the Bill 185, process for minor amendments, one of which you undertook through the removal of the expiry date. And again, that's documented back in the report to council back in June. And as well, we're able to now undertake a minor amendment for including studies for some of those that already passed a bylaw historically over this post-Jan 1, 2022. Now, in your case, you're passing a brand new bylaw, brand new study, so that piece does not apply. However, we did undertake the minor amendment for removing the expiry date. And then lastly, there's a modernization of the public notice requirements. So now for municipalities that don't have a local newspaper, if you do take a look at the legislation, it still requires notices via a newspaper that, in the clerk's opinion, is widely circulated to the public. That's now been removed. So if you don't have a local newspaper, you now are able to utilize electronic means in order to publicize or make the notices known to the public. Excuse me. So just as a refresher, as I mentioned, the affordable exemptions, they are now in place. So this slide here just shows you the new legislation and the bulletin that's been released from the province. And as I said, the information here is very similar to what I presented in the prior slide. However, what I would like to note for the committee's review is really the table on the right-hand side. So while we still don't know what attainable units are, as I mentioned, affordable housing is now exempt. And the criteria for that is as follows. If you are an affordable rental unit, then you are considered affordable if your monthly rent is less than the following. So if you're a bachelor studio apartment, it has to be less than $949 per month. One bedroom, $1,229. Two bedrooms, $1,394. And then a 3-bedroom plus, the rent has to be less than $1,484. If they meet that criteria, then it would be exempt from DCs. Similarly, if you're an owned unit, so private ownership, then the value of the unit, whether it's a single-family home, townhouse, or apartment, the sale price has to be less than $441,900. So if it's less than that amount, then it is considered affordable. Otherwise, you pay a development charge. Now, keep in mind that any types of affordable exemptions need to be tracked by the municipality. So the Development Charge Act does provide a provision where it states that municipalities shall, so there's no question about it, you shall enter into an agreement with these developers or builders over a period of 25 years. So this is where you do have to enter into a financial agreement that essentially states if they do not meet the affordability criteria, and I'm assuming there's an annual review, given that the bulletin is anticipated to be released on an annual basis. The moment they do not fit the affordable definition, then there is recourse for you to charge development charges. Now, the specifics of that is still being fleshed out. We are working with the Municipal Finance Officers Association, so MFOA, as well as other municipalities that are drafting an initial version of the agreements. So once we have that, then that essentially becomes our best practice that we would apply for everybody else. Because there are a lot of nuances and a lot of unknowns. The Act did say that the minister could prescribe an agreement. However, none was ever provided. So this is something that, will have to be fleshed out by the municipalities. And if there's any, items that need to be addressed, this would then be a discussion with the development community or subsequent, some type of a local authority such as the OLT. And as I said, the mechanism for charging back, again, is unknown. So, is it the DCs when it was first, considered affordable, so basically 2024? Or would it be the DCs at the prevailing rate? Is there interest involved? Who pays for it? Is it go on the tax roll? Is it at the time of sale? There's a lot of unknowns at this time. So in terms of the addendum summary, again, I touched upon this earlier in the presentation, but just to give you some feedback, as I mentioned, the addendum is meant to update the original background study that was released on May 13th, which again was presented to council during a mandatory public meeting on May 27th. Through this addendum report, as I said, there's a number of items that were addressed, primarily being the growth studies now being allowed through Bill 185. Again, we formulated a list, and that's contained within the document. However, we did undertake a review of a couple of other services. Again, once you've had a bit of time where you're able to really look at the capital program again, especially through the summer months. Working with staff, we had a chance to review the services related to a highway, so really your roads and related information, as well as your public works. So this is your fleet and vehicles and equipment. So we did get a chance to update some of the project costs, as well as some contributions as well that were initially included as part of the background study. We also took a look at the wastewater capital program. So there was a change to one of the projects. I noted here, Town Line Road. So that's been documented within the addendum report. And then lastly, as I mentioned, with respect to that rate freeze, now that it's 18 months rather than 2 years, we've also written that within the background document. So with the changes noted in the prior slide, with the addition of studies, this resulted in a new rate of $891 per single-family home or single detached home, or the corresponding non-residential charge of 33 cents per square foot. So this is in addition to what was initially calculated back in May 13th. With respect to services related to a highway, again, this is your roads, public works, et cetera, the charge actually decreased, again, through our review with staff. So that charge dropped from $18,757 down to $18,388. And as well with the non-residential, that dropped from $7.10 to $6.96 per square foot. With respect to wastewater, again, with updated estimates, there was a slight increase from $5,334 to $5,356 per single-family home, or a penny increase on the per square foot basis. So just a bit of a recap on the calculated development charges. As you can see right now, with the inclusion of growth studies and amending services related to highway and wastewater, our new calculated charge is $34,805 for a single-family home with all services. So not only your township-wide services, which is your roads, fire, parks and rec, library, etc., but also including water, wastewater, and storm. As we go down the different unit types, again, with less individuals presumably living in these residences, the corresponding charge also decreases. So a multiple or townhome, an all-in charge would be $23,830. We have the large and small apartments ranging from $14,450 to $22,300. And then your special care, special dwelling, which is really more your retirement homes if you do have that type of units, or residential institutional. That's about $12,000 per unit. And then we also have a charge for non-residential as well as described. So in terms of the rate comparison, you can see your current calculations right now are at $18,842. What we did calculate as part of the original background study was $34,261. Again, with the addition of growth studies, but then the revisions to services related to highway and wastewater, we're now at $34,805 is the calculated amount. Again, keep in mind the difference between the background study as presented with the addendum relative to your current background study is really the large servicing requirements, through the Smithville, master plans and the Smithville area. In terms of the non-residential comparisons, you can see right now, all in for your current charges are at $4.69. The original calculated amount was $10.96 per square foot, and this addendum report now increases that to $11.16. Now, in terms of a calculation, a comparator between yourselves and Niagara and the rest of the local area municipalities in Niagara region, as you can see, your current right now, you're a little bit right to the center of this comparator graph. However, with the large works that have been identified through the background study, as well as the growth forecasts and all the other circumstances leading up to the calculations, you can see right now your calculated amount will take you just underneath Lincoln, Niagara Falls, and Fort Erie. Moving left to the center. Now, keep in mind there are a few of these municipalities that are currently undertaking their development charge study, as well as updating their studies piece in order to incorporate the cost of growth studies, which have been excluded due to Bill 185. So there will be some changes here, most likely in the next couple of months, because municipalities only have until December 6th in order to enact the minor amendments via the Development Charge Act to be able to include studies back into the fold. And just as a refresher, as you can see, in order to interpret this graph, the green sliver at the very bottom, which is very hard to see, would be the education development charges. So they're at the very base. They're probably a millimeter or less than that compared to the overall DCs. Then we have the gold, which is the upper tier, or Niagara region, and then the blue, which is the lower tier. Now, keep in mind, Wainfleet's the only one that has a lower upper tier charge because they do not have water and wastewater from the region. In terms of commercial, as you can see right now, your commercial rate is a bit, in the middle of the right to center. So with this new updated amount, this would actually put you up 2 places from your other comparators, so just surpassing Niagara-on-the-Lake and Grimsby. However, you can see there's a number of municipalities that are still ahead of you from the non-residential commercial side. And again, same descriptions on the on the color coding for the graphs. And then in terms of the industrial, as you can see, your charge relative to what's being updated will take you just past Thorold. Now, there are 2 separated Thorold charges. There's one for the citywide as well as Rolling Meadows, and then Niagara-on-the-Lake. So even though you're skipping 3 ranks, really it's just 2 municipalities, Thorold and Niagara-on-the-Lake, and then everyone else to the left of you. Now, I like to put this graphic together just to provide members of council, committee, as well as staff and the public a little bit of overview of what really the DCs look like relative to the average purchase price of a home. Now, this is with respect to the average single detached purchase price, and I would like to caveat that these amounts are based on the Ontario Bulletin. I would urge that if there are any builders or developers that have updated purchase prices, to be able to assist with updating these costs. However, from a comparative standpoint, again, this is what the province releases when determining their affordability. So you can see on the left-hand side, obviously, is the municipality. The second column is the total DCs that you saw about two or three slides earlier with residential. So this includes the lower tier, upper tier, and then education. The third column is the average purchase price of a single-family home. Again, I would look to see what this would look like from a market value rather than looking at the Ontario DC Bulletin. But then on the very right-hand side, so the fourth column, then takes a look at what is the percentage of that DC relative to that average purchase price. So you can see right now with West Lincoln, your current DCs, all in, would put you at about $49,186. And according to the Ontario Bulletin, the average purchase price of a single-family home is about $960,000. So when looking at it as a percentage basis, you're at 5.1%. And when increasing your DCs to 65,149, that's at 6.8%, which then puts you at the average of all the municipalities within Niagara region. So again, you're not, you're not at the highest point with respect to some of the ones that you're noticing on the screen, but also you're not, near the bottom like Niagara-on-the-Lake or Wainfleet. And that concludes my presentation. As I said, we're happy to, work with the staff and then be available for any questions during the consideration of the bylaw on October 28th.
Okay,
Thank
great. Members of the committee, any questions for Mr. Tan from Watson and Associates? Oh, we have one. Councillor Chichuk.
Thank you for your presentation,
Michael.
Mr. Tan. It's always exciting to listen to development charges, that and watching paint dry. No, I'm joking. I have a question. Because we are so rural in nature, there's new steps, and we're talking all about urbanization. So let's stick with urbanization for a second. And the reality is that everyone who's coming here from Mississauga, et cetera, are not looking at what the rest of Niagara is giving. They're saying, what happened to the gold-plated water faucets that Hazel McCallion got us? And whether they are more efficient and cheaper to run is the thing that was always looked at. But when they get here and we don't have the monkey bars and the swimming pool and the 56 soccer fields, they're asking us where they are. So the limitations that have been put onto development charges haven't actually gone away, and our parkland amount is going to be in deficit as compared to previous years. So we need to talk about that, because some of these older municipalities in Niagara are going to be greener, with larger parks, more playing fields. Now, West Lincoln was very wise in that we bought the Leisureplex, but we only have one arena that currently has an issue, which we'll talk about later, and one gymnasium. It's a beautiful facility. But your presentation tells us about all of Niagara and how we compare, which is great, and I'm not knocking the presentation, but it talks about us as we compare to the other municipalities. But what it doesn't talk about is the deficiencies that West Lincoln, as being the tail on the dog for growth, and comparing us to Mississauga, where a lot of our residents came from in the last wave, and Hamilton, where the DC's rate now, without them revising it, is $84,682, and ours are not anywhere near that. We are fighting a deficit that is going to make people who come here from other municipalities that aren't buying their starter house, and at that price probably aren't, we are going to have a hard time explaining why our housing stock is so expensive and our taxes, and yet there's nothing there. And that's something that I believe our staff need to expand on as we move forward, because it's a very hard thing to explain to people, a tax system alone, but also the fact that we're walking with a very, very bad limp in that you've done everything and we compare very nicely, but we can't buy the land. We don't have the money, and we can only buy it for the average price that's in the DCs. We can't improve the park. And I'm telling you, but I guess I'm wanting you to disagree with me if I'm wrong, but I'm looking at this and saying, wow, this is not a great place to be, because we're destined for growth. We are the pressure valve that's going to come out of Hamilton and around that horseshoe of the bay, and that is what's worrying me, and the fact that you're shaking your head scares me even more. But I think that's a problem. Plus, with the fact that we are so rural, what is the impact of all of this on our farming community? And where does the 65-year-old farmer get to leave a legacy to his children with all of the other tax, capital gains, etc., coming at us from all the different sectors? So I love your presentation. I totally understand it, but I spent a lot of time looking at it. And Dawn has been, her staff have been very gracious, and asking my dumb questions, but I really do think we need to elaborate on the fact that there are going to be problems as we move forward, because the developers are saying, well, you guys can pay for the pipes, you guys can put this in, why can't you? Our borrowing level is going up, our threshold hasn't gone up, but if we have to, we're going to have a lot more houses, but we aren't going to have a lot more of the same amenities that our community has come to enjoy, which are not a lot.
So, Mr. Tan, I'm quite sure there was a lot of questions that I hope you absorbed some of those questions there. I don't know if you.
I just thought I'd load them all at once.
There was quite a few loaded there, so I'll let you answer a few of them if you'd like, Mr. Tan.
Thank you, through the chair. Again, I was nodding because every time I nod, I'm trying to mentally, okay, next question, next, like, I'm trying to compartmentalize everything there. So through the chair, maybe I'll see what I can answer here, and then obviously if there's something that, I've missed, please feel free to ask again. But, to your point, I'll take a stab first off with the parkland issue, or at least the parkland needs. As of right now, because of Bill 23, there's been a lot of changes with respect to parkland dedication and a lot of caps that now are being put in within municipalities. So to your point, if you were to do, an assessment of your parkland needs relative to what you could potentially get via dedication, whether that's, an actual land that's provided to you or cash in lieu, there's a lot of caps, and we undertake these we undertake these calculations as well on behalf of municipalities, and what we're finding is because of Bill 23 and how your parkland needs are, whether that's 2.2 hectares per 1,000 people or whatever your metric is, your current parkland bylaw, for the most part, will be deficient, and there's really no recourse to be able to recover for the full gambit of parkland that is required because of growth. Mm-hmm. So depending on, again, that depends on your your levels of service that you provide relative to what you require from developments. Now, what we do take a look at and suggest is, even though your parkland dedication bylaw may not be able to provide anywhere near the amount of parkland that you require, or whether that's via dedication on the land or cash, and then buying the land yourselves, we do take a look at maybe perhaps looking at other means of acquiring parkland, such as a tool like community benefits charges. Now, that also depends on whether that affects you, or that would be able to be something that the township could utilize. Again, with CBCs, it's very nuanced. You can only impose that for high-density developments that are 5 stories or 10-plus residential units. However, you can include any deficiencies in parkland that you wouldn't be able to get under your parkland dedication bylaw through that mechanism, which is still under the Planning Act. It's not full cost recovery, but at least it's something to help bridge that gap. Now, having said that, we also can't include parkland acquisition under development charges. So that is a restriction that we have to maintain. So if you do have any parkland needs, unfortunately, we can't include it as part of the DC calculations. However, we can include, and we have included, the parkland development piece. So if you do have any raw land or any types of dedicated land that is coming forward, or at least identified through the forecast, then we can use DC monies to at least develop it, seed it, sod it, fence it, get it to a programmable space that at least assists you in that regard. But again, it doesn't fully identify or recover for the parkland deficits that you may experience via your parkland dedication bylaw. In terms of how you compare, I understand, maybe perhaps, if requested, we could have expanded the comparators beyond the local area municipalities in Niagara and added on any ones that you feel that would be appropriate. Typically, we like to take a look at your neighbors. The next point that we typically do include are municipalities that have similar growth trajectories or similar size, because then they would have a almost not quite a direct apples to apples comparison, but at least as close to it as possible. So I'm more than happy to provide that if requested, and I could provide it through staff and then send it to you, Councillor, if that's something you'd like on the side, unless of course you want it as part of the public forum. With respect to looking at it from Hamilton, which I am a resident of as well, so I know kind of the items that we are dealing with within that municipality. Because they're a single tier and they have a different basically makeup of a city versus yourselves, which is a two-tiered system, their costs are different. For example, with yourselves, you have a main urban area, which is really Smithville, and then you have pockets of rural surrounding you. Whereas if you look at Hamilton, they have about 6 different boroughs. We have Flamborough, Glanbrook, Stony Creek, City Proper, Mount Hope. So because the urban area, although large and for the most part appears connected, there are separate communities. And most of the time what we notice is when you have multiple communities, that's where the costing of infrastructure gets to be a little bit more expensive. Because it's not one continuous infrastructure. Even though if you take a look at it, all the roads and the stuff is, for the most part, connected. And you see that as well in places such as Lincoln. They have Prudhome's, they have Camden, they have Beamsville, Vineland, Jordan. Again, multiple different urban areas, and you can see to be able to service that, their charge, as you can see in the comparator, is the highest because their costs in order to do so are reflective of that. So in your case, your costs are based on, the master servicing plan that we were able to work with the Public Works team and the rest of the township staff, and we included, all of the different capital, again, as identified today through your capital budgets and the master plan, and that's what defines that, that $34,000, $35,000 figure that we have, divided by your growth forecast of what's anticipated to come to 2051. And then, with respect to the other services such as, water, wastewater, at this point in time, we are including, again, what is identified through that master servicing plan. But keep in mind, you have a lot of trunk sewers or trunk water mains, which is not your responsibility. So that's all coming from the region. So we can't undertake, any local works, or when I say local, I mean township-related works, not necessarily the ones within a subdivision, until those main, water and sewers are actually in place. Because, we put a sewer or water main in, there's nothing to connect to, because there's no water.
I have to stop you there. You've just hit the nail on the head as to why Smithville has not been able to grow, because we don't have anything to connect the water and wastewater from houses to go to, because we don't have the infrastructure coming from whether the purification plant to our municipality or back to a processing plant. So that's a very key part when developers are looking at why we're holding them up. We're holding them up, Mr. Chair, because we don't have the infrastructure to tie into. Sorry, thank you. I hope I didn't throw you off.
No, happy enough to, it was conversation.
I'm very happy you answered that.
Again, I'm just looking at it more from a staging standpoint because you are a two-tiered system. So that conversation needs to occur with the region and taking a look at the timing. Now, there are ways to accelerate that, whether, you enter into, conversations with the region, you undertake it, they can, reimburse you for whatever portion. Or, a developer builds it and then they get a credit because, they're kind of moving it ahead. Again, there's multiple ways to handle those types of situations, but they need to be a conversation and it needs to be documented. And then lastly, again, I'm sorry, I know there's a lot of points there, but with respect to the rural community and how they're impacted, if you take a look at development charges, these are fees or, these are rates that are only imposed for new developments and new builds. So if you're an existing home, there's really no development charges you're paying unless, of course, you're building a home. And depending on if you're in the rural area, if you don't receive water or wastewater because you're on private services, you don't pay the water or wastewater DCs. You only pay the roads DC, the fire DC, because you would expect if you're building a home, having more people live in there, you would want to have the appropriate fire services. So if knock on wood, something happened, they would be able to respond because we now have DCs to be able to pay for new equipment, new stations that are located in a central area for those timely response times. And similarly, with roads, you would expect that there's a level of road that you are providing that allows for traffic rather than just stone and gravel or untreated roads that are just through an unnamed path. So these are things that are being considered through the background study, and again, there's a whole list that is anticipated to be undertaken, to 2051. But again, you also update the study periodically. So if there's anything that's new that's not captured here, it doesn't mean it's a one and done. You have the opportunity to open the DC at any point in time to be able to add new items for consideration. So with respect to the the rural community, as I said, they're paying for their share only based on what they would potentially build Again, and if they don't have water, wastewater servicing, then they wouldn't pay that portion. Again, if they're building a brand-new home or non-residential unit.
Thank you, Mr. Tan, and you've been very, very patient with me. I only have one other thing, and having read something that came out of the province, it said, if we take an agricultural system approach, creating conditions for a thriving agri-food sector is what we want to do, focusing on agricultural economic development. And agriculture impact assessments are required for any kinds of changes that we're making to urban boundaries, et cetera, for the compatibility. So, to improve the compatibility between agriculture and non-agricultural uses, do development charges hamper rural areas?
I guess through the chair, I mean, that question, I guess, would be subjective based on how you feel or you'd like to provide, for development charges and how they're imposed. Being in this field here, I see the benefits of it because, if you didn't have development charges, if you recall during my presentation back in May, the red triangle, if you still need to build infrastructure and you don't have DCs, it's fine, it's not mandatory. But if you still got to build the road and build the infrastructure, your only recourse to fund that is property taxes, existing rates, existing tax and rate payers. Again, DCs are pointed just for revenues from new developments as they're building, because as you're building, presumably there's new populations that'll be or employees that'll be occupying these residents and businesses, and they have a need or an impact to your capacity that you provide. And that's where we're trying to make that linkage where, a DC is only to help, with that increase in capacity that's required due to this growth that's coming in from Mississauga, in your example, or, the GTA that's moving into the neighborhood.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Tan. Thank you, Councillor Chichuk. I have Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Tan there, thank you for your presentation. Definitely very informative and a lot to take in there. I guess before Councillor Rayner takes off, I actually have a comment for him. If he wishes to hold back a second, I'll say that. Want me to say it in a second? Okay, so my first question to you, Mr. Tan, is, so I just want to make sure I'm interpreting part of your slideshow correctly here. So under the part that says affordable rent, monthly rent, it is breaking down between $949 all the way to $1,484. Could you just, and maybe I missed it, and I apologize if I missed it. I'm trying to understand, one, I guess where these numbers are coming from, and two, is that for projected new development, or is that an average of what people currently are finding in West Lincoln, because it specifically has West Lincoln in brackets?
Great question. Through the chair. As I mentioned, the province, ever since they released Bill 185 and Bill 23 for that matter back in 2022, the intention was for them to publish a periodic document that outlines what is considered affordable within Ontario. So these numbers, are a direct excerpt from that bulletin. So it's not our numbers, it is what the province deems to be affordable, for different municipalities. So if you open up this document, I could provide you the link if you'd like through staff. It is public, and it has every single municipality within Ontario, and it has what is considered affordable in each one. So these are meant to be really looking at the income qualifiers or the average purchase price or rental within each municipality. So it is really geared for new developments, and again, it's a point in time, and it is my understanding that this will be updated perhaps annually.
I appreciate that. Yeah, because I figured most rental units are usually going to be based on square footage, and bedrooms kind of come into it, and the 3+ bedroom around $1,484, and a lot of people would be begging where you could find something like that, which is kind of scary that they're highlighting that that's affordable, considering that's like more than my mortgage, and I got a much bigger house than that, and I have a lot more kids. So I couldn't imagine being in that situation. I guess the other thing, and Councillor Rayner's not back here, but not to belabor this, I just wanted to mention, I know Councillor Rayner's always expressed concerns, the effectiveness of going to AMO and speaking about the burdens that fall on municipalities, and I would just mention, is it Bill 185? I think it is, by them the reinclusion of the studies to the capital cost recovery is, I think, a prime result of that advocation. So, Councillor, you might, I don't know if you heard me from the hallway there, but I was just saying, I know you've expressed the most concern about the effectiveness of us going to AMO and bringing some of the concerns and issues that we're dealing with, and the re-inclusion of the, it's on my tongue. The studies, the growth studies that we weren't able to recover before can now be recovered through capital costs. So again, that is just, I think, as a result of us going there, not just ourselves, but other municipalities and staff also writing the reports and expressing some of the hardships we're going in as a success out of all of those efforts. So again, I just wanted to bring that up more for the record there. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Members of the committee, any other questions? Okay. Mr. Tan, thanks for your presentation and your answers to the questions for the members of the committee. Appreciate it.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, members of the committee, moving on. Anybody, to number 6, request to address items on the agenda. So I'll go over to our IT. Anything via cyber space?
Not seeing any, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. So moving on, we have no consent agenda items, so we're moving on to communications. Item A 43-24, Danielle Stolis, thank you. West Lincoln Heritage Committee, the West Lincoln Heritage Committee, the recommendation that the notice of resignation received on September 26, 2024 from Danielle Stolis, West Lincoln Heritage Committee be received with regrets, and that a bylaw 2023-03 being a bylaw for various appointments to boards and committees and municipal positions be amended to remove Daniela Stolis from Schedule B. I need a mover for that, members of committee. Councillor Braddock, seconded by Madam Mayor. Any comments or questions on this? Seeing none, and the vote will be in front of you. Should this time, we'll hope. I think we need to test this for council. Oh, you did? It work today? Okay, so members of committee, we're having that technical issue, so we'll have to do it the old school way of raising your hands. All those in favor of the recommendation? And that carries unanimously. Got that, Mr. Clerk? Okay. Moving on to item A44-24, Regan Van Duzen, Mayor Youth Advisory Committee, the resignation from the Mayor and Youth Advisory Committee. The recommendation that the notice of the resignation received on September 13th, 2023 from Regan Van Dusen, member of Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee, be received with regrets, and that a bylaw 2023-03 being a bylaw for various appointments to boards and committees and municipal positions be amended to remove Regan Van Dusen from Schedule C. Members of the committee, I need a mover and a seconder for this recommendation. Councillor Chichuk, seconded by Madam Mayor. Questions or comments on the resignation? Madam Mayor.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make a comment that Reagan is one of our senior high school students, and she's just found that she's unable to do that anymore. But, and we're sort of expecting that might happen with our grade 11 and 12 kids. However, we did pick up somebody new who I should be able to bring to you next committee, starting at the grade 7 level. So we're building from the bottom end as well. So I just wanted to make it clear that there's not an issue there. It's just an aging out and a timing of
Excellent.
availability.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If there's no further comments or questions for this recommendation, members of the committee, all those in favor of this recommendation by hand. And that carries unanimously. Moving on to item A45-24, West Lincoln Age Friendly Advisory Committee, minutes of the June 7th, 2024 and September 23rd, 2024. The recommendation that the West Lincoln Age Friendly Advisory Committee minutes dated June 7th, 2024 and September 13th, 2024. I need a mover and seconder for that. Councillor Rayner, seconded by Councillor Bradrick. Comments or questions for the Age Friendly? Councillor Rayner, you got a comment for the Age Friendly? Here.
I'm just happy nobody's resigned on this one.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Any comments, no more comments or questions? All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Moving on to staff reports, item A46-24, Deputy Treasurer, Manager of Finance, Caitlin Rapovs, and Director of Finance, Donna DeFilippis. The recommendation report T21-2024, titled Development Charges, Background Study, and Proposed Bylaw. The recommendation, that the recommendation report T21-2024 titled Development Charges Background Study and Proposed Bylaw be received, and that council approve the May 13th, 2024 Development Charges Background Study as amended as attached as Schedule A and B to this report, and that council approve the capital project listing to set out in Chapter 5 of the Development Charges Background Study dated May 13th, 2024 as amended, and that these projects be included in the 10-year capital plan, subject to further review during the capital budget process, and that council continue to include a class of service for growth study, and that council continue the DC approach to calculate the charges on a uniform township-wide basis for all services except water, wastewater, stormwater, and that council continues the DC approach to calculate the charges of the urban area basis for water, wastewater, and stormwater services, and that council has determined that no further public meeting is required, and that council approve, sorry, I lost my place here, council, sorry, kind of screamed, yeah, no, it just kind of zoomed out on me here. That council approve a bylaw of 2024-70 imposing development charges as set out in Schedule C to the report, and that the mayor and clerk are hereby authorized to sign a bylaw 2024-70 imposing development charges at the October 28th, 2024 council meeting. Members of committee, you heard that recommendation. I need a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Riley, seconded by Councillor Chichek. Comments or questions? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? All those opposed? And that carries. Okay. Moving on, item A47. Sorry. Let's keep zooming out. I don't know, this keeps zooming out on me anyways, but sorry about that. Item A47-24, Deputy Treasurer, Manager of Finance, Caitlin Rapovs, and Director of Finance and Treasurer, Donna DeFilippis. Read the recommendation T20-2024 titled Development Charge Interest Policy, POL-T-01-2022 Update. The recommendation report the T20-2024 titled Development Charges Interest Policy, POL-T-01-2022 updated and be received, and that the interest policy under sections 26.1, 26.2 of the Development Charges Act attached to Schedule A to this report be approved. I need a mover for that, members of the committee. Councillor Chichek, seconded by Councillor Broderick. All those in favor, any comments or questions about the recommendation? Sorry. All those in favor of the recommendation? Anybody opposed? And that carries. Moving on to item A48-24, Director of Finance and Treasurer Donna DeFilippis and Manager of Finance and Deputy Caitlin Rapovs. Recommendation Report T22-2024, Treasurer 2024 Asset Management Plan. We have a PowerPoint presentation on this asset management presentation, and Siri is coming up. Cherie, sorry, I already messed that up. So Cherie, you know, Cherie. Please come up, and afterwards there is a recommendation once the presentation is completed, members of committee. Donna actually gave me the name, I just messed up myself, so it wasn't anybody, it was me. So.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sri Lakshmi Gurunathan, shortly Sri. I'm the GIS and Asset Management Coordinator for the Township of West Lincoln. Today, I will provide a brief overview of our 2024 Asset Management Plan. While I know we all are familiar with our township, I would like to provide a quick overview to highlight some key points before moving on to the next slide. The Township of West Lincoln is the heart of the Niagara region with the largest geographical land base of 387.02 square kilometer. We have a population of approximately 15,000 with a growth projection of 38,000 by the year 2051. We are a progressive municipality known for our strong community, agriculture, and natural beauty. Over the next few slides, I will explain what an asset management system is, importance of asset management plan, overview of Regulation 588 by 17, findings from the 2024 asset management plan, our next steps, and the use of geographic information system in asset management. Asset management is about taking care of our community's resources like roads, building parks, rolling stocks. It ensures these resources are in good shape and meets the needs of the residents now and in the future. Ultimately, asset management enhances the service delivery and improves the quality of the life of the residents. Asset management plan. For rest of the presentation, I will refer this asset management plan as AMP. AMP is a document that outlines how we will manage our community's resources, which includes strategies, actions, resource needed, performance measures, and funding requirements. This helps our township assess the condition of our infrastructure and see how well our asset management and financial strategies are working. An AMP is also important for making smart decisions that saves costs and improve services while managing the risk. Asset management isn't just about physical items. It's also about how well these assets support our services. For example, keeping our water supply reliable, our roads in good condition. This AMP is a requirement of Ontario Regulation 588 by 17. The Ontario government introduced the regulation under the Infrastructure for Jobs and Prosperity Act in 2015. This regulation aims to improve how organizations work and create more livable, sustainable communities. A quick overview of our timeline. In 2019, as a part of the regulation, we established the asset management policy, which outlines the objectives and guiding principle for managing municipal assets. In 2022, we developed the asset management plan for core assets, such as roads, bridges, water, stormwater assets, and wastewater systems. The plan included key components like current level of service, inventory analysis, life cycle activities, financial forecast, and impacts of the population growth. Today in 2024, we are expanding the AMP to include both the core and the non-core assets such as parks, rolling stocks, equipments, and buildings. The requirements for 2024 are same as those for the core assets from 2022. In 2025, we will focus on refining the AMP by addressing any gaps, updating inventories, analyzing how growth impacts life cycle and financial strategies along with the proposed level of service for the next 10 years. So this AMP includes 9 asset categories, which are classified into 2 types, 7 tax-funded asset categories and 2 rate-funded asset categories. The acquisition of capital assets account for only 10 to 20% of our total cost of ownership. The remaining 80 to 90% derives from operations and maintenance. This AMP focuses its analysis on capital cost to maintain, rehabilitate, and replace existing municipal infrastructure assets. Moving on to some of our findings from this AMP. Starting with the replacement cost. Replacement cost refers to the current cost to replace an asset with a new one of similar functionality and quality, considering today's market price. The total replacement cost of all our 9 categories of asset is $474.3 million, which equals to $87,470 per cost per household, according to the 2021 census. This AMP relies on two replacement costing methods. First is the user-defined cost method, where the costs are provided by the municipal staff, which is based on the cost from recent contracts. Data from the engineering reports are based on their knowledge and experience. The second is the cost inflation method, where the historical cost of the asset is inflated to the year 2023 based on the consumer price index or the non-residential building consumer price index. Moving on to the condition of our assets. Condition data helps avoid any premature or costly repairs or replacement and ensures that the life cycle activity occurs at the right time to maximize the asset value and useful life. Overall, 95% of our township assets are in fair to very good condition. For this AMP, the condition data is gathered from asset inspections, staff assessment, and age-based information. A condition assessment rating system has been used to evaluate the assets across the township. The rating system is aligned with the Canadian Core Public Infrastructure Survey, which is used to develop the Canadian Infrastructure Report Card. Forecasted capital requirements. The graph that you see here identifies the capital requirements over the next 80 years. This projection is used as it ensures every asset has gone through one full iteration of replacement. The forecasted requirements are aggregated into 5-year bins, and the trend line represents average 5-year capital requirement. The annual capital requirement represents the amount that the township should allocate each year for each asset category to cover the replacement cost needs, to prevent infrastructure backlogs and ensure the long-term sustainability. The total annual capital requirement for all assets in this AMP is $13.32 million. Currently, the available funding is $3.26 million, resulting in an annual capital deficit of $10.06 million. A financial strategy has been developed to address the annual capital funding gap. This includes a recommended average annual tax increase of 4.2% for tax-funded assets over the next 20 years, a 3.7% annual rate increase for water assets over the next 15 years, and a 1.6% annual rate increase for wastewater assets over the next 15 years. These financial measures are based on the assumption that both sustainable and one-time grants or transfers will remain the crucial source of revenue for the capital infrastructure investments. Additionally, this assumes no new debt will be taken on to pay for the existing infrastructure. To ensure the strategy's effectiveness, tax and rate adjustments should be supplemented with project prioritization, evaluation of the desired level of service. Our next steps will involve continuing the implementation of AMP finding across Citywide. Citywide is the asset management software that we use at the township, and regularly update the database, track the current level of service, and evaluate the proposed level of service. With that, we come to the end of the presentation on the 2024 Asset Management Plan. But before I wrap up, I would like to briefly explain how we manage our assets using GIS, which is known as Geographic Information System. GIS is a powerful tool for managing infrastructure. It allows us to locate and map our assets, analyze, track the condition of the assets in real time, and make informed decisions. In short, GIS makes asset management smarter, faster, and more efficient. For example, this is an interactive map of the sidewalks of the township called the field maps. This allows the staff to capture real-time data of the sidewalk, take photos, and note any issues or maintenance needs using smartphones or tablets. The app also supports offline maps, allowing the staff to collect data without an internet connection. So this is a dashboard which enables staff to view detailed field data from the office, helping them make an informed decision. These applications were developed by our internal staff, and we have similar interactive maps for our water assets, our wastewater assets, our stormwater assets, roads, and bridges, and with more maps currently being developed for other assets. Thank you.
Thank you, Shri, for your presentation. Members of the committee, any questions or comments for Shri? Yes. Councillor Chichuk, and then I'll have one after you.
Wow, have they been busy?
Yes. Is that the only, just a comment? Oh, I thought you said questions, a comment you had. Thanks, Shri, for the presentation. I had a question. I know you have, because I deal with a lot with asset management, I know you have dealt with a lot of asset management. Let's just use the sidewalk asset management that you have in the urban area. But what about the rural areas where we do have sidewalks? There's nothing. Oh no, there's nothing in Castroville?
Yes, we are also tracking the condition for the sidewalks in the rural area too. I can quickly show you.
Just curiosity, because I didn't see any of those ones.
No, we do have them. I'm just gonna quickly make this as a big screen. So yeah, we should have in the Welland Port.
Okay, there they are
Yes,
as well. Yeah,
we do have
okay.
them right. Yes.
Okay, excellent. I know we're always looking at asset management. We focus on the center, right? And I just wanted to see what our status was in the rural areas. But thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any members of the committee, anything further? Councillor Broderick?
Thank you very much, through you, Chair. Thank you very much for the detailed report. I wondered if, and I'm not sure if the question is for yourself or perhaps the CAO, around how this information will be used when bringing reports to council about certain asset needs for expenses being put towards it. Will things be brought back to this asset management report so that we'll see that kind of, fulsome? Because when we see these things and the huge amount of information, we're not going to remember it, but we certainly want to make sure that those items are being addressed and continued to be, fixed where they need to be fixed.
Yeah, I think Donna will be the best to answer that question.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Broderick, through Chair Trombetta.
Microphone.
Thank you, Councillor Broderick, and through Chairman Trombetta. Now that we have updated our database up to the end of 2023, we're going to continue doing this. This is like a daily job as new information comes in, and we're going to start incorporating it into the budget process slowly, because it is a lot to manage for considering all the assets we have. But where we're going to start, for example, rolling stock. We tend to replace rolling stock every 10 years. Now we're going to go look at citywide, look at our assets, look at our conditions, and based on condition, if the replacement isn't needed as early, we will adjust. On the other side, if condition is saying we need to replace sooner, we will adjust. So there is a lot of data. So I'm not going to promise that we're going to start using it in every single report we do, but we're going to slowly incorporate it because it's a wonderful tool. And, our goal is that it's used township-wide. The information that's in this plan is from I'm going to call them our asset managers. So, for instance, the manager of Public Works, him and his team, they're the ones that go on the field and update our sidewalks. They're the ones doing it. So it's a wonderful collaborative system that we're working on and developing. And I think council will only see positive outcomes from it. Asset management in itself is a new kind of process. It's probably only been used extensively maybe for 10 years. So compared to other things municipalities have been doing, this is new, and we're still learning. But we really appreciate council's support, because if council recalls, council approved this new position, our GIS Asset Management Coordinator. And without this position, we would not have been able to do this work. So I gave a long answer, but I just had a lot I wanted to comment on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I'm glad to hear that it'll be a living document and that we'll be able to hopefully get it brought back to us so that there is that continued connection, and it'll help guide our questions as well, too. Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So a further question to what Councillor Bradrick was asking. I know that the sidewalks have just been done, in town. And I think they're almost finished at this point in time. I don't know whether there's still work to be done. So is there the capability on this program to actually show the condition as of 2024, now that all of that current work is being done, so that we know what our baseline is, sort of in real time?
Yes, like we can show, so the data that is gonna load now is actually the condition of the sidewalk for the 2024.
Okay.
And yes, each, we have the criteria description from the AMP, so each color represents when it has to be replaced, and those kind of informations are here. And also it gives a comparison, like how it was in 2021 and how it is now in 2024. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, somewhat. I just wondered how current we can keep the data. I think that was what I was looking at. But because we know that we've had eyes-on inspection of all of the sidewalks right now, locally within Smithville. And that work is either almost finished or is finished. It's been ongoing for the last several weeks, where pieces of those sidewalks where there was any problem at all have been corrected. So I just wondered if the system allows for that to be up to date.
Yes, the system does allow to know that, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just got one, sorry, I had one further follow-up after you, Donna. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Trebetta. Just to add to Shree's comment, so our sidewalks have been inspected every year. They typically inspect sidewalks annually. I think the use of this tool, this is the first time they've used this tool. So the goal is now what they used to do on paper, they're going to use this app, if you want to call it an app, which I'm going to give credit to Shree for developing. She said the finance department, but it was Shree. And they're also using it to go in the field, and I think they're using it in the water system to mark different assets. I don't know what they're all called. And it's like real time, so as they do it, it gets updated. The plan that's in front of you as council, we had to pick a cutoff date to present to you. So that's as of 2023.
Okay. I just had one thing to add. Sorry, members of the committee. I understand that asset management is something done by the province that wants, inventory done on our assets. The question I have is, and I understand the reason for it, it takes the politics out of, my theory is it takes the politics out of our assets. Instead of lobbying our politicians to get things done, this takes the politicians out of this. Where I consider a gravel road below poor condition, this asset management can say it's still in good condition and roads cannot get done. So I guess my question is to Director DePaul or Director of Finance, Donna DeFilippis, where I consider, or let's say, we'll all know that Councillor Rayner will consider a gravel or mud road below poor standards. In asset management, it might consider it in decent standards, and that road will never get done for the municipality, where for a long time, if we're out of these politics as we move on and asset management gets more advanced, council is just going to be focusing on this as the, I guess, Bible of how we're going to get assets done. And if it doesn't meet the criteria it'll never get done. Can you maybe elaborate on, I'm gonna open up some questions, I know to other members of committee, right? But, you know, that's one thing I'm not, and again, this is something that's been pushed down to the province to us, where I think, again, council can still overturn an asset management road, which no doubt, but I think it does take, you know, the theory of getting some of these roads that we are gravel, that I think are poor condition, that should be hard surface. So if you want to elaborate a little bit.
Yes, through you, Chairman Trebetta. So in asset management, when you think of a non-paved road, so a non-hardtop road, they don't really get replaced, they get maintained. However, for this specific asset management plan, we have included what's in the 10-year capital plan for upgrades. So in the 10-year plan where we have an unpaved road being paved, it's been included. So that replacement cost is included. In 2025, the asset management plan will look at, I think it's called proposed levels of services. So if council wants to change the service level to say, we want this percentage of roads to be hard-topped, it'll be costed out, and council will have a sense of what that will cost. So the asset management plan is, we have to do one because the province says we have to do it. There's certain guidelines, but when it comes to the service level, that's council's decision, what kind of services they want and what they're willing to pay for it. I think the most important thing for council to take from this is a realization of what our replacement costs are, because we don't talk about that a lot. Even our audited financial statements, they only include what we paid for things. It doesn't consider what will it cost to replace. And the other thing that this plan advises us is that we need to put more money aside for our assets. How we divvy that up is another decision, but overall, we need to put money aside to make sure our assets can provide the services that our residents are expecting.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Riley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I guess through you to, I'm going to say our director, Donna Philippus. So I got a bit of outside the box question here. It's related to traffic calming, and I'm wondering how flexible this document is, because when we have residents or staff becomes aware of problematic areas, let's say where a road, through our transportation master plan needs to be recognized for adjustment or changes to apply, like in a traffic calming initiative, could this document help keep track of that? So what I'm asking is, so let's say there's an area where we recognize that the stop signs, or an area needs stop signs, or whatever it is, we're getting a tremendous amount of complaints or concerns from residents about an area. Can this document be used to record that, so at some point down the road, when we get into the traffic calming elements that eventually need to be applied to our community, we can have this to kind of refer back to, say, yeah, we received, this road here, is in red because we got 3 million complaints, and we look now, it merits the requirements to go look at what we could be doing differently. So I guess I'm looking at it from it's still a little bit of an asset management, but not necessarily what I think it was intended for. I'm just curious if this is something that can kind of serve multiple purposes.
Through you, Councillor Riley, to Chairman Trebetta, I believe if that information is being tracked, so if there is a system that takes in complaints and they're recorded by address, I believe GIS, the mapping tool, could track them. So not necessarily the asset management piece, but I believe the mapping piece could track them, and then council could have a visual to see these are the complaints we're getting regarding traffic calming, and you could see it on a map. So that's the beauty of the map. It's just a visual way of seeing it. In terms of how it would work in an asset management plan, I'm not sure if that's where you would actually do it. It could be a measurement of service. I'm not sure. That's something we'd have to consider. But however, the map could probably do what you're asking, as long as it's being tracked. If it's not being tracked, we can't do it.
Okay, and thank you, and to you, Mr. Chair. That's exactly, I guess, what I'm trying to look at is a way of us tracking areas that we're hearing more and more from. And when the residents call, or you have us speak about it, if there's no measurement or no tool being used to measure that over a period of time, then it kind of just falls on deaf ears. So I really would like, I don't know what you would require from council to look into that. I also don't know what, you'd have to look at how to implement that and who actually records that and how that eventually comes back at a later time and that gets monitored. But I guess maybe we'll bring that up around budget time going into 2025, because it's certainly something would like to see us explore. So that's all I got, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, sorry.
It's okay.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Riley. Councilor Rayner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support the chair's comments with regards to the province downloading it. They're not doing it to do us a favor. They're doing it to get out of their own responsibilities. I just don't like it.
Thank you. Okay, I got to read the motion that's here. PowerPoint presentation, that the recommendation T22-2024 titled 2024 Asset Management Plan dated October 21st, 2024 be received, and that council approve the Township of West Lincoln 2024 Asset Management Plan attached as Schedule B, and that council directs administration to include the financial strategy recommendations for the asset management plan in the future budget deliberations. Need a mover, obviously we had a mover for that, did we have? Madam Mayor, seconded by Councilor Chichuk. Well, I think we've done our comments or questions. All those in favor of the motion? Opposed? Thank you. Carried. Moving on, item A4924, Chief Fisher, information report WLFD 14-2024, monthly update September 2024. The recommendation that report WLFD 14-2024 titled Monthly Update September 24 dated October 21st, 2024 be received for information. Members of committee, I need a mover for that. Councilor Riley, seconded by Councilor Chichuk. Any comments or questions for the fire chief? I do. I thank you for that email this week about the incident that we had. I know it was a bit of a tragic situation on the Kaser Center in Concession 5. Seen that the NRP have been stationed there for a bit right now as we pass by, so just you want to comment a little bit on that, Fish, since that was something on this week?
I can be very brief. I can't give you much information. I can tell you that they're waiting for some information to come back from the coroner's office, hence why you're seeing the police there. They have to keep continuity of evidence. So they can't turn it over yet.
Okay.
You should see some changes in the next day or so, though.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Councilor Rayner?
Thank you. We drove by tonight. There's no cruisers there anymore. So they must have concluded whatever they're doing. I did pull over on Saturday and speak to the cruisers that were there, and they were basically waiting to finalize from the fire marshal's office. That's why they're still there. That must have been concluded because the cruisers are gone.
Thank you, Councilor Rayner. Any other comments or questions? Madam Mayor?
Just on another note, Mr. Chair, I just want to, through the chief, thank Station 1 for the open house on Saturday. It was very well attended. People seemed to be enjoying it. I really appreciated and I tried to post it, but it wouldn't take all my photos and whatever. But there were a lot of young families there and a lot of really good information for families and active interactive things for kids to do. And I think that over the years has really improved, and I think that's worthy of you sending back comments to the guys, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Any further comments or questions? I'll call the vote. All those in favor of the recommendation? And that carries. Moving on to item A50-24, Human Resources Coordinator Janine Bufo and Director of Legislative Services Clerk Justin Paylove, Information Report HR 01-2024 After Hours Emergency Phone Procedure. The recommendation that the Information Report HR 01-2024 titled After Hours Emergency Phone System Procedure dated October 21st, 2024 be received. I need a mover for that. Councilor Riley, seconded. Madam Mayor, any comments or questions on the phone system? Councilor Chichuk?
I think the one thing that we were looking for, at least I was looking for, was exactly what I think we were talking about earlier before the meeting, which was it does say that the after hours will give us a reply when they return to work, which might be 4 hours, 4 days, or whatever. But I think the part that precipitated this was the fact that on a regular basis, what is the standard, even without Christmas close down? I understand that there's an ability for our staff to be able to answer their phone even when the operations are closed. But is there a plan to answer calls within 24 hours, 48 hours? Because that's the gap that I think is existing right now. And when we put in a call now to people who are away, the thing I would love to see is that their phone is automatically put to, I'm out of the office, I will be returning Friday, I will return your call then. Or if we have a practice that senior management return the call within 24 hours and mid-managers or staff will return it within 48. It's just knowing how quickly someone will get back, because this is the way it's supposed to work. We're going to put a phone call in. It'll go to central dispatch or to a phone answering machine. But is that going to be picked up? Is it going to be picked up during the holidays or during regular work? If you're away at a conference or if you're away on vacation. That's, I think, the gap that we're trying to fill. That was what I was looking for.
Thank you, Councillor Chichuk. So I'll direct that question to either the CAO or Deputy Clerk, whoever wants to tackle that one.
Through the chair to the rest of council and to Councillor Chichuk. So this report was speaking more specifically to the emergency phone system and when we are in a closure situation. While there are different scenarios in which directors will be internally directed to do a certain type of phone messaging system or email phone messaging system, because we do have that software now, is another matter, but I do take into account that as well for the closure. That is something internally that we are dealing with, but this report specifically was outlining what would be relayed during the emergency phone closure, and it is outlined within the report as well. It was taken in, I think during your last comments during the last administration fire meeting, that there was some confusion or lack of clarity in that message. That is being rectified internally by staff. We are altering the message. We were satisfied that it did direct it to the proper place, but there was a lack of efficiency, I suppose, in that answer. So we are actually rectifying that currently and going to change the phone messaging system. But right now it does go through, as you see, I think about halfway through the report there, about what it is, the wording, and also how it is directed. So you can see there, like the three, which is the after-hour emergency to the Niagara Region Dispatch, which is monitored 24/7, 7 days a week, and will go to whoever is on call. That is internally managed as well. Usually, as Director Mike knows, that goes to either an operations person or whoever is on call, be that be the supervisor of Public Works. So this report was more so specifying when it is in a closure situation. However, we have had internal talks of what that will look like for the manager and director level as well. But that wouldn't be as reflected in the report as per the recommendation during the last administration committee meeting.
Mr. Chair, okay, so if I dial 0 and we're closed, it's a general mailbox. Is that going to be picked up?
Through the chair to Councillor Chichuk, do you mean picked up in at that time, or do you
Officer,
mean will that message be somehow
Will it be
received
acted
by
upon?
staff?
We're closed till January the 6th, 4th, whatever the number. But I pressed 0 and I left a message in the general mailbox.
So for a general inquiry, it would be dealt with when the staff member is returned at the end. For an emergency service, so if you lose power, if something is wrong with your road, if there's a downage with some type of tree, that will be relayed as it is in the first note there. If it's an emergency, it will go to Region Dispatch, which is answered on a 24/7 basis. We confirm that with the region. However, if it's a more general inquiry that is not an emergency of any type of nature, it would go to the general mailbox, which would be answered when staff is returning. There is a directory which brings you to specific people if you do know that extension. However, of course, people, when they call the main office, it goes to that general mailbox. So that, to answer your question, would go to a general mailbox that would be answered when staff return, when the township is open. But again, emergencies are always routed to a service that is answered 24/7.
I don't know that people know whether or not it's an emergency. If I'm not dying, where I called an ambulance, or if I don't have a house on fire, but it might be something urgent, and telling me that it's going to a general mailbox. It's okay, I'll leave it for now. because I just don't understand that if we're closed for 6 days, or 5, or whatever, that it's going to a general mailbox, and when we get back, will it be something that can be dealt with within a couple of hours of starting up again? That's what I was looking for. So, the general mailbox is just we don't have a call center, so we don't have any dynamic to tell people that your call, regardless of what it is, my sidewalk didn't get shoveled. Oh dear. Somebody just fell outside my house. Oh dear. Are you going to shovel my sidewalk? I don't know. What would I call? And how quickly would you get back to me? That was all I was kind of looking for. But you know what? I'll leave it, and we'll see how this rolls out and what efficiencies you're going to bring in. It just sparked me to thinking about those kinds of things. So, thank you.
Councillor Riley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to go down to the financial implication aspect of this, and there's certainly nothing too concerning, but it did bring up a question I think we kind of talked about, but I don't know if it really got recognized. And so I'm just kind of curious. So it looks like we've changed the name now. It used to be like a holiday schedule. Now it looks like it's defined as winter break closure. Maybe I missed that previously. I thought it was always referred to as the holiday closure. But that doesn't matter. What I'm stepping towards, I guess, is so we've, as a municipality, are essentially forcing people, and I think you brought this question up yourself, essentially forcing people to take a day off. And so my question to you is, what happens in a situation where that individual probably may not celebrate the holidays, or a situation where they've just recently been hired and maybe don't have the time in lieu to take off? Are they being forced to go a day without pay, and is that really a good practice with someone starting new to an organization? I don't know if we're going to have anybody in that scenario, but kind of being proactive and thinking forward, what kind of potential implications are we creating? I guess is the clarity I'm looking for. So through you two, I guess maybe our Director of Finance, if that's the right place. Sorry to dump that on you, Donna. I'm just trying to understand what was maybe went into the planning of this and if that was thought of.
Thank you, Councillor Riley, through Chair Trombetta. So, as Council knows, this has been a practice at the Township that predates my starting here. It is something that when new staff are brought on, they are told by their supervisor, manager, that we do have a shutdown during the Christmas winter break. It's typically 2 to 3 days. It only impacts staff that work in the Township building, because Public Works is still operating. And we advise, save a few days for that break. I will say there are some staff that do take it without pay. And I cannot speak for all staff, but in my experience, most staff enjoy having that time off. I've never had anybody say to me, I'd rather be working. They're happy to be off because so many other members of their family or their friends are off at the same time. I will agree with you in terms of people observing holidays at different times. As we change, that will happen. And so what we do is we do allow the stat day to change depending on when you happen to celebrate. So we're very flexible that way, because we realize not everybody follows the same holidays. I'd say the majority of people use vacation lieu. The very, very new people that come on with the Township, and they tend to be unionized, they may not have all the vacation just because of the way their collective agreement is, and they tend to take it, they might have to take it without pay. But you also have to remember, if this building is closed, we can't have staff here working unsupervised either.
Excellent, and so thank you. I just wanted to clarify that information because I don't know how much we got to the bottom of that, so I appreciate that explanation. And happy to hear that that's something, a discussion that's actually happening, and we're not accidentally creating an HR or human rights issue down the road because how that wasn't being addressed during that stage. I can see something like this kind of not being seen, but are being recognized until we're already in it. And this is the first time, from my understanding, that we're taking this much time compared to what we've done previously. So that was more or less why I'm bringing this question up now and not in previous years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Any other questions? I got maybe just a comment I'd like to, just because Councillor Chichuk sparked something in my brain. So, sorry, go ahead. I'm going to lose that thought now.
Chairman Trombetta, no, I think the difference this year is over the past few years, the stat holidays have fallen on the weekend. And I think because of the way the holiday falls, it may appear that staff have to take more days off, but it's actually in line with previous years. Just so I just want to, give you that thought. It's not, we're not asking staff to take more days than in previous years.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, so can you clarify, because I must be completely under the misunderstanding. I was under the impression there was an extra day or two that had not been done because I feel like we haven't been closed for that long, because the last meeting we were discussing what implication that was, and that was actually other members, I think someone brought up the concern about what if someone applies for a marriage license and now they got to wait till the new year. So you're saying there's not more days, but that was not what we were told previously. So can we clarify what the actual schedule is?
Mr. Clerk?
Through the chair.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, and I will refer to the deputy treasurer because she's more involved with payroll, but I believe it's typically 3 days, sometimes 2, that staff have to take unpaid. It's been the regular practice since I remember. It's never been 1 day.
But you're referring to the consecutive days. Like how many days? So we're referring to so if we're closed from the 23rd or 24th and we don't open up again to, is it January 2nd? Yeah. So, we're talking about 8 days or so. I don't recall last year us going 8 consecutive days with the township office. That is not obviously Public Works and that being closed, but you're saying that is normal practice, but I'm saying I don't believe that is because that's not the discussion we had. So I'm just looking for clarity there because that is the difference in this year.
So through the chair to Councilor Riley, maybe I'll just provide some clarification just because it does seem that way just based on the dates. However, so the 26th, so that is a day that we would be closed regardless, falls on a Thursday. So the 27th would be the first day that township staff would be using as a vacation day, whether they have that built up or not. The 28th and 29th is the weekend. The 30th and the 31st would be the second and third day, and then the first would be closed again for the holiday. So it's kind of just a perfect storm of bad timing, and where it makes it seem like it's a very long time. However, it is 3 days as it was the year before as well. It is still actually 3 days of actual holidays, and it just happens to be that the weekend falls between those as well.
Okay, but am I still, and please correct me if I'm wrong, am I still understanding that this is one of the first times, I guess it may be in 7 or 8 years or how many years it goes, where it's closed for a length of it?
Last year was the same.
We were closed for about 8 days last year as well.
Sorry, to me, Mr. Chair. When it falls on a weekend.
Your microphone, Madam Mayor.
But
I'm just saying, so it's the same thing as the school, when the school's closed and whatnot. If it falls on the weekend, it depends what day of the week the holidays actually are, that determines how that works.
So last year, the 26th would have been like a Wednesday, which means we would have been open on the 27th and 28th.
Thursday and
Or
Friday.
we would have been open the Thursday, Friday.
So last year.
Okay, hold
So
on.
through the chair to
One
Council-
second, members of committee. We have microphones on and we have chatter one at a time through the chair because I know we're having it back and forth, just so we can pick it up on our stream. Go ahead, Mr. Deputy Clerk.
Through the chair to Councilor Riley, I still believe that those 3 days would have fell that way, but it would have just fallen into the weekend again.
Okay.
If you understand what I
So
mean,
were they,
where
Councilor Chichek was kind of break something down here, referring to half days. Were we partially open? And that was part of the confusion? Like, were we not open for a few hours Christmas Eve? Because I actually thought your report actually highlighted the fact that previously we'd been open, but staff had reported a low amount of traffic as a result, which actually encouraged this. So I think this is where the confusion's lying now.
Yeah. Director of Finance.
Through you, Councilor Riley, through Chair Trombetta. So last year, the township was closed. The last working day for Town Hall was December 22nd. We were open on December 22nd. That was Friday, December 22nd. We reopened on Tuesday, January 2nd. So it was a week and a day.
It's just a clarification. There's only 3 stat holidays that are given, which is Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and January 1st. Everything,
Uh,
unless there's some, in the province of Ontario, 3 stat holidays days are classified in that 2 weeks period, which is Christmas Day, Boxing Day, and January 1st. Now, is the Township of West Lincoln giving an extra stat holiday for the 24th? Because that's not usually a stat holiday under the province of Ontario. Yeah.
Through you, Chairman Trombetta, the collective agreement states that December 24th is a stat holiday. It's in the collective agreement.
So it's been in your collective agreement.
It's in the CUPE collective agreement that December 24th is considered a stat holiday.
So that's been negotiated.
Okay, so that's great, and
good
good for
information.
that clarification. So I just want to get better understanding of, so you're saying the 22nd was the last working day? My microphone is on.
No, sorry, Bruce, sorry.
Sure. Can you hear me now? Maybe it's a loose wire. Yeah, so I guess I'm trying to understand it somehow. I think, I don't know, I want to go back to the other report we had just a month or so ago. But if I'm understanding correctly now, you're saying the 25th was a Friday. So that was the last working day? Sorry, what do we have here? The 26th was well, so.
26th was a Tuesday.
Okay.
Thursday.
So no, we're talking about net last year. So the 22nd, I keep saying 26th. So what was the 20? Was the 22nd like a Friday?
Sunday.
Yep, through you, Chairman Trombetta. Town office was open on December 22nd. It was open the full day. That was a Friday.
Okay, so it was the 23rd to January 2nd. We were closed last year, is what you're saying.
Yes, we reopened on January 2nd.
Okay, so we were closed for that whole week, which I think adds even a little bit more confusion because the last meeting we were at, some of the questions and comments that come up was trying to understand why we're going to be closed for so long this year. So last year kind of fell into that dilemma as well. And so I thought this was something a little bit different this year, but now I get where you're coming from because we wouldn't have just opened up, I guess, for the one day. I thought there was a couple of half days there, but I think that clarifies things. So
Thank you, Councillor
Thank
Riley.
you.
Thank you for that. And I still remembered the question I was going to ask after all that. I think, I'll just sum it up. I think there's no doubt that as a council, as mayor and a council, that we're all looking to improve service levels. We do hear from the public on many occasions, not just, let's not take this holiday as the only thing that's where we want to enhance our service levels to the new CAO that's here. Councillor Chichuk did bring something up. If someone is away, they get a voicemail. Again, we a majority of us are all property owners, and if we're closing on a property, you need some information on a property that you're willing to purchase. You have a 24-hour window, or you're going to lose the property. And those are questions that have came to myself and probably other members of committee when you're ready to close on a piece of property and you're getting a voicemail from staff that you're not available, you're at a conference, timing is a big issue. And I guess I'm going to direct this to the CAO. Timing is a big issue, especially, when a 24-hour, especially as now that we're seeing interest rates go lower and things are going to start ramping up, I see in the near future. And especially in West Lincoln, they want to know what a lot of people are trying to invest in our community and what's going to be coming out here through business. And if they need an answer because they're really trying to close on a property, or someone's going to, they need some information, but somebody can come in, as we know, can come in with a cash offer, they can lose it, and they're nervous. So, and again, if like Councillor Chichuk said, if someone's at a conference for a week and that voicemail says, who is going to be doing to answer the question? So I think what council in a whole, at least what I'm picking up, and please, I don't want to speak out of turn, members of committee, that we were trying to enhance our service levels for the public in these kind of cases. So I don't know if you can maybe touch on that, Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And through you, I think just tracking the discussion with council, with the Christmas piece aside, I think that the broader question is, what is the level of service the municipality currently has with respect to customer service? And I haven't come across yet in my time here whether or not a customer service policy exists for the municipality or not. But perhaps that's a policy, if it's not there, needs to be developed and brought forward. That way council can direct what service level it wishes to have. There's a variety of different ways that a customer service policy could be approached. It could just simply be stated as a minimum level of service, phone calls, emails, text. Text may be a little bit more difficult, but must be returned within X number of hours during a working day. That's one way to approach it. There's more sophisticated systems available today that would require some more investment from the municipality. that could take that to the next level. And when somebody calls into the municipality, it would come up with their name, their address, everything that they've contacted the municipality about in the past. And that way, the person answering the phone would already know likely what matter might this resident or customer be contacting the municipality about. So if council was interested in something like that, a report could be brought forward that would give further direction to how such a policy could be crafted. If one does exist, and I haven't come across it yet, administration could conduct a review of that policy.
And I think that's something that, again, that's something for the future that we can discuss as a council. Not, I know we're at the end of this year, but I think something in the future I'm looking at myself, again, because we're all members, we're representing, our constituents out there, and those are the kind of the questions that are coming to us about certain service levels that are not being met. But again, this is more future dialogue that council and members of the committee can have. Councillor Chichuk?
I think we were looking for something that just said, if I'm away, I'm going to pick up my voice messages at the end of the day and I'll get back to you within 2 hours. I really don't think we want to go to something as sophisticated as an Amanda program that goes out and touches your tax system, your billing system, your bylaw system, et cetera, and gives you a dashboard of all of the possible billing opportunities this person's going to have. It may be as simple as my dog, how do I get a license? I don't know. But I was looking for, I called the person, it's going to the general mailbox. That was what I was worried about. Is that general mailbox going to be answered while the store is closed, or is it going to mean it's waiting till January the 2nd? That was it. And if you're away at a conference, you're going to pick them up, or you're not. I'll be away. I'll call you in a week, or just tell me what you're doing.
Yeah, I hear your questions of concerns there as well, Councillor Chichuk. But as myself, like I said, there's not just this holiday schedule. There's, let's just throw it out there, there's bylaw issues that people are wanting to know what's going on with that. And there's a bunch of service levels, I guess this committee maybe we can work on in the future. Not now, obviously, but in the future on what type of service levels we're looking at obtaining. So, Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and back through you. So I was able to go back to last month's meeting just to bring up to kind of understand maybe where some of the confusion came from. I will note that it was recognized as the winter break. I guess my question through you, Mr. Chair, we heard the word historically, this is what we've done historically, but I do recall there being a time, and maybe my recollection is incorrect, but it feels relatively familiar sometime last term where this wasn't the normal practice. And the fact that you're coming to council to ask for us to support this last month indicates that this is not something that has been a one and done bylaw. So I guess my question to you, Mr. Chair, to maybe our Director of Finance right now or CAO, I don't know if he would know, when did this become the normal practice? Because I suspect that this might have became the normal practice during the pandemic when things were still closed. And so I'm just wondering when that change happened, or am I just remembering this entirely wrong?
Through you, Chairman Gerbett, I guess I'm the historical reference now these days. As I mentioned earlier, this winter closure predates my starting at the township. I started in 2010. It was already happening. I think whether or not a report went to council every year, I don't recall. I'm sorry, I don't know that. Okay. And I believe perhaps in the past, I don't know what last month's recommendation was, but I think in the past it may have just been information to let council know this is when we plan on closing. But I will say that this closure is not new, had nothing to do with the pandemic. This building would close during the break. And the only difference would be looking at when holidays fell. How many days would it be? How many days would people need to take off as a vacation? 2 or 3? That would be the only item that would really change.
Okay, appreciate that. And again, looking at what was broken down into the conclusion of last year, identify what you said, the 24th to the 1st, which obviously the weekend was the 22nd and 23rd. And again, my holiday plans, usually we go skiing, so perhaps it's another part of the equation. I didn't realize the building was closed during those things, and I never heard from residents, so no one obviously had reached out to complain either. So this is not trying to make this a negative thing by any means, just certainly seeking clarity and understanding of what's actually being proposed here and what my understanding was last month. So anyways, I appreciate the dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Okay, members of committee, it's a good fulsome discussion. So you had that recommendation in front of you. It was moved and seconded. All in favor of the motion? And that carries. Moving on to other business, item A51-24, members of committee, any verbal updates from any boards that they're sitting on that want to discuss that they've been to lately on any boards or committees? I see a movement. There we go, Councillor Chichuk.
Mr. Chair, just to remind you that, that the Chamber of Commerce, which I act as the liaison for council, is having their business awards this Friday, and there are still tickets available. And if you want one, you can contact the CEO of, or pardon me, Executive Director of the Chamber, and I'm sure we'd love to see you all there as we celebrate the businesses of our community. And remember, Tuesday night you get a second chance. I am on the committee, as is Councillor Riley, but we're celebrating those special people to the town of Smithville and to the greater West Lincoln community who have dedicated so much effort, and we have appreciation for some in a posthumous manner, which I know will be greatly appreciated by people who knew them and were related to them, as well as, pardon me, some of our newer members to the community who have shown dedication and certainly service to the rest of the community. And that's on Tuesday night at the community center. I'm sorry if I preempted your comments, Madam Mayor. I just thought of that. Anyway, that's the two that I would like to report on.
Okay, Councillor Riley.
Got nothing. Councillor Chichuk covered it.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Now, I just want to point out, Mr. Chair, that tomorrow night does start at 7 o'clock and it is open to the public.
Okay. Councillor Broderick. Madam Mayor, may you want to touch on the roast beef dinner on Wednesday?
I can do that. I have tickets for that, but I think you have to have tickets
You have
ahead
to
of
have
time.
tickets, yes.
And yes, United Church is having a roast beef takeout dinner.
Takeout dinner.
Takeout dinner on Wednesday evening. And the Chamber Business Awards, of course, are on Friday, and our CAO is part of the panel and doing a presentation. So, yeah, lots of good
Okay.
things happening.
Just because it was this week coming in a couple of days, I just thought
Yeah.
maybe we should mention it. Okay, excellent. Members of council, any other business of informative nature, starting from my right? Anybody? To my left? Okay, that's excellent. Any new items of business they wanted to bring forward? Seeing none. There's no confidential matters, so I will adjourn the meeting at 8:22, and we'll move on to our second portion of tonight's meeting. Thank you, members of
Welcome to the Township of West Lincoln Public Works and Recreation Committee agenda for meeting number 7. I'm your chair, Mike Rayner. The public may submit written comments for matters that are on the agenda to jpaitlove@westlincoln.ca before 4:30 p.m. on the day of the meeting for consideration by the committee. Comments received after 4:30 p.m. on the day of the committee meeting will be considered at the following council meeting. Comments submitted are included in the record. This meeting will be live streamed as well as recorded and available on the township's website. Land acknowledgement statement. Township of West Lincoln, being part of Niagara Region, is situated on treaty land. There are many First Nations, Métis and Inuit from across Turtle Island that live and work in Niagara today. The Township of West Lincoln, as part of the Region Municipality of Niagara, stands with all Indigenous people, past and present, in promoting the wide stewardship of the land on which we live. Is there any items that wish to order to be changed by members of committee at this time? Seeing none, disclosure of pecuniary interest and or conflict of interest.
Chair, I think you missed some names during that.
No, I think I didn't. I was fine, thank you, but I appreciate you bringing it to my
Right,
attention.
sorry, I thought there was
Is
some.
there any conflict of interest? Seeing none at this time, thank you. Appointments, there are no appointments. Request to address item on the agenda. Kevin, is there anybody in cyberspace that wants to talk to us tonight?
Not seeing any, Mr. Chair.
And I don't see too many in the audience tonight either, so I guess we can skip that one. Consent agenda items, item PW 34-24. There are no consent agenda items. Communications, item PW 35-24, West Lincoln Public Library minutes, September 17th, 2024. Recommendation that the West Lincoln Public Library minutes dated September 17th, 2024 be received. Need a mover and a seconder, please. Councilor Bradrick, Councilor Trombetta, any questions from members of committee? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Staff report, item PW 36-24, Coordination of Engineering Services, Jennifer Bernard, Director of Public Works, Mike DePaula. Recommendation report, PW 23-24, 2024, 996 Abington Road, land transfer declaration as public highway. Recommendation, one, that recommendation report, PW-23-2024, titled 996 Abington Road, Land Transfer Declaration as a Public Highway dated October 21st, 2024 be received, and that a bylaw be passed to declare parts 2, 3, and 4 on reference plan number 30R-16181 on Concession 2 Road and Abington Road as a public highway. Need a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councilor Riley and Councilor Trombetta, any questions from members of committee with regards to that staff report? All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. 9.2, item PW 37-24, Director of Public Works and Recreation, Mike DePaula. Recommendation report, REC 09-2024, concession stand lease agreement, West Lincoln Community Disease Transmission Center. Recommendation that the recommendation report, REC 09-2024, titled Concession Stand Lease Agreement, West Lincoln Community Disease Transmission Center, that administration be directed to renew the concession stand lease agreement between the Township and Minor Hockey Association, WNMHA. I need a mover and a seconder for this one. Councilor Trombetta and Councilor Chichok. Any questions from members of committee on this one? Councilor Chichok.
Councilor Rayner, Mr. Chair, I think it was this is not the disease center.
It was closed 4 times by the province.
Okay, Councilor Rayner,
Madam Councilor.
Mr. Chair, I'll leave that to someone else or the clerk to put it as a point of order. I take as written in our minutes or in our agenda
Then you call it.
that the recommendation report titled condition, because I have a problem with concession stand lease agreement, West Lincoln Community Center be received, and that the administration be directed to renew the concession stand lease agreement between the Township and the Minor Hockey Association.
Right. You still move it?
I will move that, Mr. Chair, and I hope that the seconder would do the same. But I do.
Councilor Trombetta, you second it?
As it's written in the agenda, yes.
Yes, fine, that's good. All right, all those in favor?
No, I have a question, sir.
What's the question?
And that is that I wanted to make sure, it said that it be received and that it be renewed. And in the body of the report, it said for a year. And it's not saying that in the recommendation. Is this, I apologize, but I'm not sure whether it was not for a year and it was just Is that the right number? Because it usually is in the recommendation.
Mr. CAO, can you please answer that?
I would like to go, Mr. Chair, through you to the appropriate staff, and I believe that's the director.
Through the chair to Councillor Chichuk, yeah, the term of this lease is for 1 year.
Would it be a real violation if we were to ask that that be put into the term of what it is we're looking for, which is what we normally have? Thank
Sure.
you, I apologize, it may have been an oversight, but it is for the recreation, the community center. Thank you so much.
All right, all those in favor of the recommendation?
Well, I think the clerk needs.
Thank you, Councilor. I'll take that as a friendly amendment to include, to renew for a term of 1 year.
Yes.
And I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Director, did you not say it was in the term already, a 1 year?
Through the chair, to the chair, I believe that the councilor was just seeking to include it in the recommendation. While the lease does say it, the preference from the councilor was to include it in the recommendation, so it would be trackable through the minutes. This isn't acceptable to me. Friendly amendment, just as it doesn't change the spirit, but it is a clarification for the public as well.
So you want it?
Mr. Chair, I read in the body that it was a 1 year extension. But when I read the recommendation, I had not read the report. So I thought that just as the clerk is telling us, it's an easy way to track it, and it's understanding that it's not just a renewal, it's a renewal for 1 year.
So you
That
wanna
was
add
it.
that?
That was all.
One amendment then? So you want to add that? Do you want to read it?
I think he did, as a friendly amendment.
All right. Councilor Riley.
To you, Mr. Chair, back to yourself. Are you all right? You seem a little agitated.
We'll get through this. Let's move.
Okay, I just want to make sure that there's not
Thank you.
some kind of medical distress or something we should be aware of.
No.
Okay.
So, what do you want? All right, so you want to vote on the amendment?
The chair was taken as a friendly amendment. The resolution as it stands right now is to renew as a clarification for 1 year, but nothing else has changed.
So now we just vote on it. All right, so all those in favor? All right. Item PW 38-24, Project Manager Ray Vachon and Director of Public Works and Recreation Mike DePaula. Recommendation Report PW 24-2024, 2024 Guardrail Replacement Program Tender Award and Budget Amendment. Recommendation 1 at the Recommendation Report PW-24-2024 titled 2024 Guardrail Program Tender Award and Budget Amendment dated October 21st, 2024 be received, and that Council awards a tendered submission to Peninsula Construction, Inc. for the guardrail replacement work in the amount of $341,292 excluding HST, and that Council approve a budget amendment BA 2024-10 in the amount of $20,000 funded through a transfer from the Bridge Reserve, and that a bylaw be passed to authorize the mayor and clerk to enter an agreement with Peninsula Construction, Inc. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Madam Mayor and Councilor Trombetta, any questions with regards to this? Councilor Chichuk.
I noticed that there's 2 sets of guardrails that are rolled up like a piece of something, accordion. I know they're probably on regional roads. And they're, no, I can't remember, but I just go by them regularly, and I notice they've been like that for a very long time. And they're beside those lovely, large electrical installations that were installed. Are we waiting for this to get approved so that we can fix those? Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Chichuk, are you talking about the guide rails on Regional Road 14 near the regional yard there where they were all curled up?
And the one on Port Davidson.
On Port Davidson. I'm not aware
It's
of
been
the-
there, it's been there since April, and I'm
Okay.
thinking since the accident. So if it's coming to winter, I would expect that those 2 would be very important, because that's another place for people to.
I'll make note of that and make sure we get on it, but I'm not 100% sure if.
Okay, one on Port Davidson was.
Yeah, this would be on Port Davidson Road. Yeah, you're correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
And will this get them fixed?
Yes, that work is included in this tender.
Okay, any others? Question? Councilor Broderick.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to the Director. Just for clarity, I think for myself and perhaps the public, that when there is an accident and the guardrails are deemed as needing to be replaced, there's a recovery, I would assume, by us through the insurance. And if you could just highlight how that kind of works, that it's not necessarily coming all out of our coffers.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Bradrick, as long as, if there is an accident and we do have a police report with the proper insurance documentation, then yes, we do recoup the cost. Unfortunately, the locations in this tender, we don't have a police report or the insurance information. So sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. In the tender, there's two components to this tender award, and the guide rail replacements that are due to damage and accidents, we don't have the police report to recoup our cost on those. And the other aspect of the guide rail work in this tender is when we do our biannual bridge inspections. There's some bridges that were identified that the guide rails don't meet roadside safety requirements or comply to roadside safety. So in addition to those guide rail repairs, we're also doing repairs on our bridge structures to make the guide rails on those bridge structures compliant. That's the purpose of this tender.
Well, through you, Chair, that's great information, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Seeing none, all those in favor? That's carried. Other business, PW 39-24, members of council of an informative nature. Council Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll try to be brief. I guess through you to our director, I had already chatted briefly with them, but I just wanted to kind of get out there. One of the common inquiries I've been hearing in the community is some concerns around road safety, and more recently concerns around, and this is a regional matter, and I realize it's a regional matter, but people not stopping at some of our new crosswalks, specifically right by Dennis Drive being one of them. Some reports of some people overpassing buses even as they're slowing down and trying to safely get children on and off the bus. So I just to the director, if you could just maybe inform the public of any complaints that you may have received and how they can go about getting that to the region. I think part of the issue is trying to, we have a very convenient website, easy to report a concern, easy to bring stuff to the attention of our staff. This is obviously a multiple folds. This is not just a regional issue, it's also a policing issue. Speed cameras and stop signs are not going to prevent this kind of stuff. We actually need more advocacy for more police protection, essentially, in our community, not just presence. And so if the director could, I don't know if he's had a chance to connect with staff to figure out if there has been any reports, because I've had residents reach out saying they've reached out to staff but they haven't heard back, and sometimes that could be confusing if they maybe don't know where to go and what the right avenue is for them.
So, through the chair to Councillor Riley, if people do have concerns, they could report a concern or call our front desk administration staff and our public works admin assistant. We'll document that and make it clear to the residents that if it's a regional road or a policing issue, that we'll advise them accordingly, that we'll reach out to the region to share their concern and also give them the appropriate regional contact information to follow up as well. So yeah, that's the process that we would follow.
Perfect, and I appreciate that. And just one last follow-up too. I think I bugged you about it a few months ago or so. I was just kind of curious where we were with our traffic calming initiative, and if something like that can be applied. Obviously, it can't be applied on the regional roads because that's not our responsibility or our authority. But if maybe we can kind of see where we're at with that, so we can start protecting some of the other aspects of our neighborhoods and our community. Because I'm sure we've all witnessed it. People are treating stop signs like suggestions. People are, distracted driving, you name it. Our community is no different than any other community. So hopefully we have some stuff in the works or some stuff to come shortly to council, and we can explore what those options look like.
Any further questions?
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Riley. Whenever there's a traffic concern, whether it's a speeding or stop sign, we do have a process in place to address those. With respect to traffic calming, the township currently doesn't have a traffic calming policy. When we did the transportation master plan as part of our urban boundary expansion, that was one of the recommendations in that TMP, that the township should look at traffic calming policy and or like a road safety initiative. So our staff in Public Works are working on that. We hope to bring something to council shortly. We're just kind of struggling between whether we should be bringing forward a traffic calming policy or more of a safe neighborhood type of initiative. So stay tuned. We'll be bringing forward a report that lays out both options and the pros and cons related to both strategies, and we'll be recommending something, and we'll have this discussion at a later date.
Perfect, thank you.
Any further questions from any informative? Councillor Chichok.
Mr. Chair, yes, I think that there was some information that was been updated while we were sitting right here about the community center and the fact that there has been an ammonia leak, which has closed the facility for a number of days. Is it possible that we could have an update through you to the director to just understand, there's new information, is there an update that we could share with the public?
Mr. Director.
Yeah, through the chair to Councillor Chichok. We had some unexpected maintenance that we had to do on our ice compressor equipment. The arena was closed on late October 17th. We're waiting for a part. The contractor never had the part. We're waiting for the part, and unfortunately didn't come in over the weekend. They received it this afternoon. They were working on the equipment, and when they were trying to replace that part, they just found out within the hour that there's another gasket that more internal to the equipment that needs to be replaced. So they're trying to find the part now. We're a little bit uncertain if they have the part or how long it'll take before they find it or are able to source that part. But they're trying to get a part. They think they have the part, and we are hoping that they're able to find that part in a quick way and get the repairs done this evening. If there may be a possibility that the arena could be closed tomorrow morning as well, but we're hoping that the part can be sourced tonight and the repairs can be done tonight.
Just further to that, Mr. Director, or through you, Mr. Chair, to date, you have saved the ice. It has not melted because of the measures taken by the staff. Am I correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Chichok, that's a very good point. We were able to save the ice. We kept the equipment running. If we did shut down the compressor, then yes, we would lose the ice, and then we would be out of service for a much longer period of time. Thanks for bringing that up.
Thank you, Mr. Director.
Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you back to the director on that topic. I received, and I reached out to you as well, but I'd received comments from the community concerned a little bit between what was being relayed to them, even the information we had available to us at the time versus what we've just recently learned this evening. And questions even around, I guess, the functionality or the operation of the walking track. And so I guess maybe just for the record there. So to the best of our knowledge, the thing came up on our computer here. The ideal situation is this is going to be resolved soon and that there is no risk to the public, and that's why that part of the facility is remaining closed. Is that what I'm understanding?
Through the chair to Councillor Riley, that is correct. With any type of gasket leak, obviously there's some kind of chemicals that run the compressor. So out of an abundance of caution, we decided to close that entire area of our facility.
And assuming as well, like staff is doing all their due diligence to protect themselves too?
That is correct,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any other members? I have one through the director. This is a $31 million building and it's relatively new. I know things break down, nothing's perfect, but is this warranted? Is there warranty cover for this?
Through the chair to the rest of the committee, this is not under warranty. We've had a similar part replaced about a year ago, so yeah, it's not under warranty.
So what is
normally
the
a warranty period is just a year or two after substantial completion.
So what would be the estimated cost on this?
I don't have that number readily available, but I'll be more than happy to share that with committee.
Next month, possibly?
Sure.
Why, that's unusual. Anyways, anything else? Okay, new business. Is there any new business anybody wants to bring forward at this time? Councillor Trombetta.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to introduce a new item of business, so I'm looking for a seconder so I can introduce.
Is there a seconder to introduce? Councillor Riley. All those in favor of? Okay, floor is yours, sir.
Thank you.
Councilor Riley, sorry, through the chair, I just need a little bit more clarification, so if I could ask the counselor before we continue to a vote, and also if you'll humor me, I'll try to use the voting system. I think it was recently fixed through our tech support that I have been contacting during the meeting. So to Counselor Trombetta, so is this in regards to, I believe that you had let us know before, fleabane weed?
Fleabane weed, yes.
Okay, so would the acceptable recommendation, just before we put it on the agenda here, that a new item of business be added in regards to the damaging weed fleabane, as it were called, if that is acceptable to council? Just so
That's
we're,
okay for
just so
me
the
if it's
public is aware.
acceptable to committee.
Okay, so that is the motion being put forward, so I can actually use the voting system, so hopefully this will come up here. It
Well, I
works for me.
support it. Why would we do it now? It's the end of
I've
the
been
day.
talking to them. Yeah.
The last one, and he's got to change it.
Do you want your computer?
All right, so what happened?
It carried.
All right, it's carried. Okay, so it's still carried. Councilor Trombetta, so you still may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So it came to my attention from a few farmers in our municipality that fleabane is an obnoxious weed, and they were looking at some support from this council. I did speak with our Director of Planning, and he has reached out to the various I guess, groups as OMAFRA, et cetera, into dealing with this. He did state to me that, you know, for us to deal with it, it did need to come as a motion from council. So I just have, and if anybody wants to touch on this, they can. I did have the motion here that the administration be directed to prepare a report in regards to the steps to designate fleabane a noxious weed in West Lincoln for a future committee meeting. So that's what I'm looking for, Mr. Chair.
We need a seconder for that then? Councilor Riley? And then anybody can speak on it? Anybody wants to speak on this? Councilor Chichak.
Listen, it's sitting on a couple of agricultural boards, it is a very common problem across Ontario. And fleabane is very difficult to control because of its ability to spread like the wind. So it is nauseous, and it does cause great problems in all crops. So I believe that this is the start of putting forward an ask to the province and then to the federal government, who control the substances that can be applied to noxious weeds, to ask them to consider it as another thing to be looked at this year. So I think Councillor Trombetta is putting forward something that will be much heralded by many farmers in the area and across Ontario, and we'll see how far we can get it.
Through to Councilor Chichak. You're telling me that the herbicides that are presently used will not take it out?
That is correct.
Whoa.
There are different kinds of fleabane, products that people use, be it teas or mixtures with the organic people, or organic people have less ability to fight it. There are a number of organic farmers in West Lincoln. We always forget that. And then there's also fields of all kinds of crops that will be susceptible to contracting fleabane as it moves through the air. So, no, it is not necessarily treated with the chemicals that are out there right now. And CPMA, no, that's the wrong one. I forget the acronym, but they do look at the types of chemicals that need to be reviewed and add them to the arsenal of farming for new and emerging species that are inhabiting in the agricultural world. So it happens in Ottawa every year. This might get some traction with OMAFRA and get to that conference in January.
Councilor Trombetta?
This is something that the farmers did have multiple dialogue with our planning. It wasn't me, they just needed a counselor to bring it forward, but when they did reach out to me, obviously this is more of a heavy farming issue that, I learned about because I didn't know too much about it. And what I did was I directed the multiple farmers to our planning director, which he sat with and did discuss. And then through our dialogue, through myself and the planning director, as well as the clerk, the best method was what was brought forward tonight, to have this brought in council to be able to be actually supported and dealt with. So that's just my comments. I think the Madam Mayor needs to.
Madam Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add to what Councillor Trombetta and also Councillor Chichok are saying, in that I have also heard very often from farmers, sort of in Ward 3 on the outskirts area as well, who are very concerned with what they're seeing coming up in their fields and along the roadsides and so on. So it's not isolated to any one particular area. It's very widespread, and it's certainly, if there's something we can do as a council, I think that we need to take that starting measure. So thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes,
Just one more,
Councilor
just to
Trombetta?
kind of follow up, because Councillor Chichok had it, says
Yeah.
it's effective burn down in early spring or aggressive tillage are important to kill early season rosettes. Used for a residual herbicide is important to provide weed control through the critical weed-free period in soybean. So it's actually something quite important to many farmers that.
You don't want to burn your crop, and you don't want to till it under, is what that's saying.
You don't want to till it under.
Wow.
So obviously it's affecting a lot of our soy crops as well, so that's what's been brought to our attention, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else? All those in favor of passing this motion? Pardon me? Are you putting it on the screen for the second time? Okay, I'll support it, obviously.
Thank you for the support, Council, on this. Thank you.
I find this very interesting in the sense that, we have soybeans that are genetically modified GMO that resist Roundup, so you can spray. But this is almost like it created its own genetic pool, which is fascinating how it can do that. That's why I'm kind of puzzled right now, because it's never heard of that before.
I learned also.
Councilor Chichok, you're going to say something?
If Roundup if the beans are resistant to Roundup, that means they won't die if you spread it.
Correct.
Spray it, but that doesn't mean fleabane will die.
No, it means that fleabane also has a genetic modification in it that Roundup doesn't affect it, because you said normal herbicides are not affected by it.
Mr. Chair, I don't mean to interrupt. I realize you just kind of want some clarification. I feel like this conversation can happen
Yeah,
outside the
offline.
meeting, because we don't have this a motion or anything before us. So
Yep.
if you could just continue that after.
So
the
we
meeting.
need to vote on
Well,
it.
we already did vote on it.
What do you need? We
You
already
said
did.
support.
Is it done?
Yeah.
Supported?
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry, I
And that's
just
it.
wanted to bring that to your attention.
All right, that's fine. Anything else? Okay, there's no confidential matters, and we can adjourn it at 8:59 p.m. Thank you.